All right, we are going to shift gears back to H 632, the miscellaneous DEC bill, and welcome Deirdre Ritzer. Welcome.
Hey, thank you. So good afternoon. I am Deirdre Ritzer. I am the Mobile Sources Section Chief in the Air Quality and Climate Division at the Department of Environmental Conservation. And thanks for inviting me to speak today about the proposed amendments to the income eligibility of the Automotive Emissions Repair Assistance Program. And I may refer to that as AREP because it is quite a mouthful, but I try not to talk in acronyms.
And what does ARAP stand for?
It's the Automotive Emissions Repair Assistance Program.
So there's an E in there.
Yes, it's about emissions repair.
ARAP.
Right.
Madam Chair, if it's helpful, what's on her testimony?
Thank you, Representative.
Yes, and I try to keep it on all of the slides too.
Oh.
So it's helpful.
Glad I'm not the only one he picks on.
Oh, no. We're all vulnerable.
With my sarcasm problem, equal opportunity. Yeah.
Fair enough. All right.
So the legislation passed in 2021 included the creation of a motor vehicle emissions repair program. The authorizing legislation specifically aimed to provide financial assistance to low-income Vermonters with vehicles in need of emissions-related repairs associated with failing the annual motor vehicle inspection. Importantly, the program provides relief to low-income Vermonters while protecting the air quality of all Vermonters. And the program was launched in August. Oh, I'm on the wrong slide. That's not helpful. This is the slide I'm supposed to be on. Apologies. But the program was launched in August of 2024. Okay. Following the first year of program implementation, we determined the need to revisit some of the applicant eligibility criteria. The current eligibility criteria are shown on this slide, and the first bullet in bold is the focus of the proposed changes. Currently, the income eligibility for the emissions repair assistance program is the same as the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, or LIHEAP, which requires the applicant's gross household income to be at or below 185% of the federal poverty level.
Do you know what? Representative Austin. All right, everyone, we're going to do a reset.
Just what is the federal poverty level?
It is based,
Right.
It's based on your household size. So for like a
I see.
one-person household,
Kate would know this. right
I
off the top of
do
her head.
have
15.
that information.
21,150 for two people, 26,650.
Sorry, we're talking about
Excellent.
base.
Federal poverty level.
Yes.
21,000 for two people.
What? That is incredibly low.
Is that what you're saying?
Is that what you're saying?
What's that what Google says?
Well, anyway.
What is different for the county?
Anyway.
I think it is adjusted each year and it depends on your household size.
Sorry, you can keep going.
Okay, and I can send, I just don't know if it was
I can look it up. I just thought,
showing on my screen.
yeah, I can find out.
Okay. Okay.
Seems-
So we're proposing revising the method used to determine the income eligibility for the emissions repair assistance program to improve the verification of income eligibility. So we propose using the adjusted gross income, considering the number of dependents claimed, as opposed to using the gross household income. While an applicant's gross household income is effective for LIHEAP, using gross household income for the repair program presents several issues with auditing the program and income verification. We just don't collect the same level of personal sensitive information that LIHEAP does, essentially. And I'll go into a lot more detail now, so bear with me. The gross household income depends on household size. So currently, the emissions repair applicants self-attest to their household size during the application process. And the program has really no way to verify the reported household size without collecting additional sensitive personal information. Also, to verify household income, consent from every household member to release their tax information would be required. And the only tax forms that could provide gross household income are the homestead declaration credit claim form and the renter credit claim form. And the applicants for this program may not file these forms depending on their living situation. If an applicant does file either one of those forms, the income data collected doesn't account for potential exclusions allowed under LIHEAP when determining gross household income. And these allowable deductions include the cost of childcare, court-ordered child support, some shelter expenses, some medical expenses, etc. So as a result, using these forms to assist the program with auditing and income verification wouldn't really be accurate. Additionally, gross household income is more applicable to LIHEAP support, which directly benefits households by helping with energy needs for the home, while the emissions repair support directly benefits individual vehicle owners and should not necessarily depend on housing status or household size. But please note that we're not talking about eliminating household size considerations. We are proposing using the number of claim dependents listed on an individual income tax return form as a proxy to household size, which is done in other similar repair assistance programs in other states. And just as did you have a question?
Representative Chapin does have a question.
Yeah, just to clarify what you're saying right now, household, if two people are just sharing bills and aren't family or in a relationship, I mean, does household literally mean people who are sharing an apartment or a house?
I am not 100% sure.
Well, my main question though was really about ownership. You've got eligibility here, but it doesn't show that the vehicle has to be owned by the person who's. It makes a lot of sense to me why you'd want to move from household related to LIHEAP, which is a federal program that's related to heating that home. Makes a lot of sense. Now you're talking about what would make sense for a car. Does the person with that income eligibility have to be the owner of the car?
Yes.
An owner of the car?
Yes.
So then also you could have two different people who are going to be sharing a home or an apartment, or whatever kind of space, any kind of household. And each have their own car and each have their own income, and they can each be eligible for dealing with their own car because it's their car and their income. So okay, thank you.
Yes.
Just clarifying that.
Exactly. And just as an example, there have been multiple transportation-focused incentive programs like Replace Your Ride, Mileage Smart, and the electric vehicle purchase incentive programs that were previously administered by VTrans that utilized adjusted gross income as their income criterion. AGI is more easily interpretable by applicants as it's reported right on their federal and state income tax return forms. So this change would allow for income verification and a simplification of the auditing process working with the Vermont Department of Taxes. So I realized I've said a lot there. So just to sum up, changing the criterion from household income to adjusted gross income on the applicant's most recent income tax form, considering the number of dependents claimed, would make the income criterion more applicable. It would allow for efficient auditing, and it generally remains comparable to the LIHEAP income eligibility. That was a lot. And this is my last slide. So looking at the second proposed change, the current program offers up to $2,500 for emissions repairs for applicants that have an income at or below 85% of the federal poverty level. So the proposed amendments include a sliding scale of voucher amounts that expands eligibility for lower and middle income Vermonters while preserving the highest voucher amounts for those with the greatest need. The proposed changes also align the program more closely with comparable programs administered in other states. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
Hmm.
On your last slide, the proposed sliding scale, is that in this bill, called out in this bill, or is that?
Yes, I believe it is in the tracked changes.
Yeah, we didn't get it.
Is it?
What section?
What section is it in?
24,
What page are you on?
33.
33, thanks. I didn't know, I thought it was just.
I just happened to turn right to it.
Yes, they are, very end, this is good, okay. How many people take advantage of this and how do you find them and how is the program working overall?
Let's stop sharing my screen for the moment. So I can pull up those numbers.
There's a little time delay, so
Okay.
it may or may not be working, but there.
No worries. So, well, we have had 114 inquiries into the program. And there is a bit of a pre-screening process because we don't want everybody to go through the entire application process, which there's some pretty intricate steps. So we do pre-screening first. And after pre-screening, we've had 114 inquiries, 101 applicants were pre-screened. Out of that 124 applications were received that were complete applications. And we have issued 3 vouchers.
And the program started when?
August 2024.
Oh, okay.
So we've also helped additional few applicants that weren't eligible, but did have emissions warranty coverage that were being inappropriately denied warranty either from the dealer or the manufacturer. So we worked with them to get them through that process, and those vehicles were repaired as well.
And how much money do you have for this? And your slide is not up if you, I don't know if you're trying to put it up.
Oh, no,
Okay.
sorry.
That's all right.
Our budget is, our total budget at the beginning was $975,000.
And do you know where that came?
So 375 came from the transportation budget. And I believe 600,000 came from the general fund.
And do you know how outreach is done?
What do you mean?
How would anyone out there who's be eligible know about the program?
Oh, so we have conducted a ton of outreach. So we have met with and shared information with basically all entities that field low income questions, inquiries. So we're listed with 211, the relevant municipalities, the community action agencies are aware of the program. We also work collaboratively with the Department of Children and Families. They have their Reach Up program where they have some funding that can go toward vehicle repairs as well. So we work together to relay applicants that might be more eligible amongst the two different programs. And we have information up on our website, DMV's website, and the Parsons, which is the emissions, the inspection contractor who works for DMV on their website. And we also do social media posts.
You're right, you do a ton.
Yes.
I have a question of what is a relevant municipality?
Oh, so we have a couple of repair shops contracted to participate in the program. So they are located in Shelburne and Bennington. So those towns are aware and have information up, at least on the Bennington website, about the availability of the program.
Representative Chapin and Pritchard.
So it sounds like you haven't let everyone who does inspections know.
Everybody that does inspections is aware of the program.
They're not able to do the repairs if somebody qualifies.
Correct. We've contracted with we did a request for proposals to the entire repair community to see who wanted to contract with the state to participate in the program. And we ended up with 2 contracts. And it has started out as a pilot program just because we didn't have staff to go along with the funding. And it's the beginning of the program. We want to make sure we do it right and we can make tweaks as we go and adjust, make an informed decision when and if we can go statewide. But so far, the applicants, the inquiries that we've gotten, I think it was maybe only 2% had an issue with traveling to the repair facilities. So traveling hasn't been a problem or a limitation that we've seen so far.
Your intention would be to, I didn't realize this was a pilot. So your intention would be to, once rolled statewide, that there would be repair shops all across the state people would have access to.
Yes, we would definitely do more of a geographic dispersion.
Representative Pritchard.
Isn't there was a program in place to repair these vehicles, and it didn't matter if it was an emission failure or not. And I when I was in the car business at a dealership, I used to help out a lot of these folks, but I would get a call from the state. Is this the same? Is this just, is that program still in place? Is this a different program that I'm thinking of?
It might be a different program you were thinking of. I'm not aware of that. I know that there is through the DCF program with Reach Up, they work with like Good News Garage. And I think DCF provides funding to the families that they're helping out to get their cars repaired. And I think that can happen at any repair facility, and it can be for safety or emissions.
Okay, so these are totally separate.
Yes.
And, you know, just, I throw it out there. I don't know how you get around, you know, emission repairs are extremely expensive. I mean, extremely expensive. And what would be a great help and probably double the amount of good you can do for people if there was a way to use auto salvage parts to make these repairs. And it's unfortunate that we're not allowed to use used oxygen sensors, use catalytic converters, you know, use map sensors, but whatever. I mean, the savings the help that you could give people on this, if that was part of the deal, because normally these cars are older cars, at least what I, you know, with my dealings are, you know, this car may be 8 or 9 years old. And the older a car gets on emission components, the more expensive those components get. So it just kind of compounds the problem. So.
Do you know? I'm gonna ask one just because otherwise I might not remember it. The V-Trans money that goes to this program, was it part of a air quality requirement? Like, do you know why V-Trans would have contributed?
It wasn't part of an air quality requirement. It was back in 21, so I'm not entirely sure.
Representative Morris.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a money question. How many applicants have been successful receiving these grants?
3.
You budgeted $975,000.
They didn't divide it up. $300,000.
Yes. No, the maximum is 2,500 for repair. So.
Good news.
Yeah, so for the repair vouchers, and let me be clear, 2 have gone through the entire process and have been paid out. The 3rd has been awarded and she just got her car repaired today, so we haven't paid it out. So it, I believe, adds up to maybe $4,000 or $5,000 for the 3. And then we've used administrative money for administering the program as well.
And the value of that? Is it number of full-time employees or number of?
Well, we have 1 employee administering the program. And we've used about $37,000 in startup costs. So that was involving the request for applications to get the contractors on board. And then we've used about $50,000 in administrative.
Representative Tagliavia.
How does the reimbursement work? Is the shop that does the repair the one that sends the invoice to your department?
Yes, yeah, and then we pay them directly.
So we don't often get to talk to folks from Air Quality Division.
It's my first time being here.
Great to have you. Can you just tell us a little bit more about what you do?
Oh, sure. So I work in the mobile sources section. So that is mobile sources of air pollution, primarily transportation. So we do a number of strategies to control emissions from motor vehicles. And those include adopting and implementing the California motor vehicle emission standards. And so those include low emission vehicle standards. So that's for gasoline and diesel cars. And then there's the zero emission vehicle component. And we also partner with the Department of Motor Vehicles and work on the inspection program. We oversee the emissions inspection piece of it. We also have a program where we provide technician training for Vermont technicians on how to properly diagnose and repair emissions-related problems. And we also have another program where we reduce diesel emissions. So we have a lot of grant funding that goes out the door to replace older, more heavily polluting, heavy-duty diesel trucks. There's also non-road equipment is eligible, replacing those with either cleaner diesel with state-of-the-art emission controls, or there's often electric options as well. So we also implement, the state is a beneficiary to the Volkswagen Environmental Mitigation Trust. So we also implement that grant funding that is just for electrification projects, and that's for heavy duty vehicles.
And how's that going? Wasn't it focused on school buses?
Part of it was school buses, and the other part is trucks. And it's been going well. I think 2027 is the 10-year anniversary. Yes, and we just recently had an request for applications, and we awarded a grantee for, I think this one was an electric delivery truck. I think a refrigeration delivery truck.
Have the school buses been successful?
Yes and no. I think they've been a good place to learn for sure. There were 4 electric school buses funded with Highland Electric, partnered with South Burlington. Those have been very successful. There were a couple of buses funded for Franklin West Supervisory Union, and those buses had some issues. And they're under warranty, so they're back and forth with getting repairs. But those have been less successful. There was another 2 electric school buses funded for Champlain Valley Union. Those were also fairly successful. I think one bus was more successful than the other. And then there were a couple that we funded for that went to Student Transportation of America, and those were in the Barry School District. And unfortunately, those buses have been parked because they were the manufacturer was an electric only manufacturer, and they went bankrupt and they're not being supported. And so, yeah.
Yeah, that's quite the spectrum of success learning.
Yes.
To have Leah.
Those 2 buses from Barry, how much of a hole did it put in your budget?
So that was Volkswagen money. That was the settlement funding that the state got from Volkswagen due to their diesel scandal. That could only be used on these types of projects. So I think they were between $300,000 and $400,000 a piece.
So that's money just parked somewhere.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Representative North.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Deidre, for your presentation. I'm gonna continue on with my neighbor's questioning along some financial lines. So a total of $5,000 has been vouchered to Vermonters for this out of the $975,000 of this budget. That's 0.5% of the money actually made it back to Vermonters. Is 75,375 vacation 600 in the general fund? Was that one-time money, or is that ongoing?
One time.
That was one-time money, like ARPA kind of funding, or
I'm not
not quite sure. So it was one time in the 2023 or 23?
So the 375,000, the initial pot of money, came from state fiscal year 2022. And then the $600,000 bump was, I think, 2024.
And how much of that 975 we have left? We continue, how long we expect that to last?
I don't know how long we expect it to last. We have about $878,000 remaining.
It's 78,000 remaining.
$878,000 remaining.
And I realize you've only, it's a, what'd you call it, a startup program, a pilot program, thank you. So are those 3 vouchers that were given relatively recent, like it's just trying to catch up and now we're, maybe are we gonna see like more frequent vouchers?
So the last voucher we're currently in process. So in the last month. The other ones, I think were in, well, I was gonna say in 2025, which was just a month ago. So I think they were earlier.
So we're not seeing like a big upward trend. It's,
No, but I will say that we are working with the Department of Motor Vehicles on some flexibilities that exist in the emission or the inspection program. And I think once we work through some of those things, we expect to see more people funneled into this program for
so it
assistance.
seems like
Right.
the Vermonter that's making out the best is the one FTE who got the job out of it. Okay.
Well, I will say we didn't hire anybody
Yes.
to implement this program. It was somebody who had 100% of other job duties. And we've decided to say, hey, a quarter of your job duty now is to implement this.
So it's really a quarter.
So we actually have to move on. We have another witness and this was really great. Thank you very much, but.
Thank you.
Yep, I want to make sure we have time for the next witness.
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
Make sure I'm disconnecting to everything.
Yeah. You can do that. Yeah. That goes here.
Thank you.
Please join us. Way the agenda that had the note on it. You could also. Have that. Yeah, it's not, yeah. Yeah. Separate, I don't know if they did, but maybe. Whenever you're ready. Thank you.
I think that Kat had gotten PDFs out. And so I'm gonna just connect through Tower. And for the record, my name is Rebecca Pfeiffer. I work with the Agency of Natural Resources in our Rivers program, and I manage our river corridor and floodplain protection program. And I almost never use Zoom stuff. If it's, just give me 1 second. Okay. There's screens here. Yeah, I'm just gonna go to my PDFs.
But they were just, the slideshow was up.
Oh, was it the slideshow or did you see my notes and everything?
Oh, I didn't see.
Just a slide?
Yeah, if you go to the
Okay.
slideshow.
There's a presenter. I can see your hands.
Yeah, well, that's what I was trying to go to, and I assume that you all saw my whole, I know I was going to, but it wasn't,
Yeah, we can, but they're very small. We can't read them.
yeah, let me do
I want to run out of time.
okay. There we go. Okay, thank you.
That little thing needs to go.
Okay, so I had submitted PDFs, so if you want to follow along or reference anything. And as Chair Sheldon said, well, on the agenda, I'm Rebecca Pfeiffer. I'm the River Porter and Floodplain Protection Program Manager in the Rivers Program. I don't typically begin testimony with written out statements, but I am going to read a short statement, and the rest of the time I'll probably just speak more plainly. But I felt like it was important to provide an insight and perspective from our position in the Rivers Program. I've come today to talk to you about H632, about the miscellaneous updates around the Flood Safety Act. Most of them are involved around changes to our timelines. Some background on me, I've worked in the Rivers Program, specifically in the Floodplain Management Program, since 2006. So for the past 20 years, I've worked and stayed in this program because of my belief in the work that we do, advancing the awareness and the advocacy for the protection of public safety in floodplains and river corridors, and the protection of these essential riparian areas of the state. There are essential areas that protect us from the current and anticipated increased impacts of flooding from climate change. For the past 3 decades, the Rivers Program has operated on the belief that river corridor and floodplain protection is best done working with our partners, communities, and individual Vermonters. That every interaction with the member of the public is an opportunity for education and to listen. And to this end, we have always centered our program on the belief that the best permit is the one that isn't issued because impacts are avoided, and how to make sure that unavoidable impacts in river corridors and floodplains will not make flooding worse for the people and infrastructure already located in these key resource areas. We see that the buy-in and deeper societal understanding of the why we do this, in addition to the how we do this, is an essential part for the success of protection of these essential riparian areas. Over the past 20 years, myself and many of our senior Rivers Program staff have attended hundreds of municipal and public meetings and other partners to advocate for the outcomes created in the Flood Safety Act. Over those many years, we have also seen, met, and worked with many of the Vermonters who often get left behind when they experience flooding or flood damage to homes or businesses in flood hazard areas and river corridors. Through anecdotal experiences and then in further research studies in Vermont, we disproportionately see Vermonters who have the least ability to recover from flooding, living in flood hazard areas and in river corridors. And they often have the fewest options for recovery and relocation after flood events. It doesn't matter whether the flood event is one that is covered by national news outlets, like in 2023, or Irene, or if it's a federally declared disaster, or if the flood is only one that impacts a small area of one town. It's often a life-changing experience for that resident or business. As I believe Commissioner Kamen spoke earlier this morning, the new statewide regulations would apply to those already located in river corridors and floodplains, not just apply to new construction. The scale of regulatory expansion is vast. It's over 5,600 miles of mapped river corridors, and it would amount to over 200,000 acres of new lands under regulation and over 45,000 individual parcels being covered by this expanded statewide regulation. This dwarfs the scale of the 2014 Shoreline Protection Act or the recently implemented 3-acre stormwater rule, which I think you heard about earlier this morning. Okay. So I just wanted to provide, make sure I'm on the right slide. I just wanted to provide a little bit of background and on the work that we have done for Act 121 to this date. So part of what we're coming here to talk to you about is changes to our timelines, but we thought we also wanted to talk about what we've done as a program. So a lot of what has brought about, I think, a lot of interest in the Flood Safety Act was a lot of the flooding in 2023. So the July 10th and August flooding of 2023, we then had flooding in December 23. That was another federal declaration. And we had 3 additional flood declarations in 2024. And then last summer, we had one in the Kingdom that should have also probably been a declaration, but was not. And so our program is one of the entities of the agency that responds during these flood events. So I have here just our state program roles in the floodplain management program. And one of the key pieces that we do is provide post-flood municipal support. So we're helping communities reviewing properties that have been flood damaged, helping to do post-flood permitting, helping to make sure that they're meeting their obligations for the National Flood Insurance Program to also do damage assessments to determine what the course of action is for different structures and businesses and floodplains. This is some of our base work, and also the recovery of the 2023 floods is still there. We're still having meetings about FEMA reimbursements and trying to maximize the state's ability to get reimbursements under the 2023 flood events. So despite that, though, we've been doing a lot of the work of Act 121 under the Flood Safety Act. I think the key piece is that we've really looked at some of the different implementation sequences, hiring and training staff, working on the state municipal minimum standards rulemaking, National Flood Insurance Program Study Committee, the River Corridor infill mapping, and River Corridor education and outreach. And I'll talk about each of these as we go through. So one of the key pieces, one of the things that we testified to in 2024 when we were looking at the program or the legislation and the potential for that work to come to the program is that the legislature granted us
Thank you.
5 new positions, which is nothing to sneeze at. That's a pretty substantial investment in a program. And at the time, we talked about the time that it typically takes that we see to create positions, to advertise positions, to interview people, to get them on board and moved in state or kind of leaving their old positions, and then actually doing the training to bring them up to speed, to provide capacity for our senior staff. So at this point, we have 4 of our Flood Safety Act positions hired and on board. You'll see those folks hired and highlighted in red. We have also had 2 other vacant positions, one that we filled. Right now, the 5th position and another vacant position is being recruited and hired. That's our river scientist, 2 river scientist positions that are currently right now like in the middle of recruitment and interviews and stuff. So that is something the time to do that, it always seems like it's going to go a lot quicker than it does. And time goes through that. And the biggest investment in that is the substantial amount of time to bring people up to speed in what they're doing so that you can start to hand work off to other folks so that we can pick stuff up. And that's just now happening. So some of the first folks that we hired was in the spring of last year. And so they're just about to come up to their 1-year hiring anniversary. And so we're seeing that capacity starting to be created within the program where I don't have to go on site visits down to Windsor anymore because we have a regional floodplain manager now in Springfield. And other folks in my team don't have to come from Rutland to cover Brattleboro, because we've been covering positions. So we're seeing that capacity being created in our program.
Can you, before you move off of the slide, I thought I heard the deputy commissioner say this morning that 11 positions were funded.
I think that it was in total for the entire agency. So I would always refer to the deputy commissioner or the secretary, but I think it was 1 position went to wetlands. We had 5 positions, so that's 6. And I think the other positions were for dam safety. They were conversions of limited service positions to full-time positions, and they may have had additional new positions created, but I don't want to speak for certain on that because there are other programs.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. So a lot of the focus in the testimony that I think the committee has received earlier in the session so far has been on the new FARC rule, the new River Corridor rule. And I think part of what our perspective of this process is that is kind of the end game. And so a lot of the front loading from our program's perspective of the work that we've been tasked with is actually doing some of the inundation work. So one of them is the minimum flood hazard standards for towns in the National Flood Insurance Program. And the other piece of that is the study committee on the state's role in administering the National Flood Insurance Program. So part of why those are kind of front-loaded pieces of the legislation when we testified in 2024. Right now, I know that there have been some discussion previously, like how does floodplain regulations work? It's town by town. Every town that is in the National Flood Insurance Program has to voluntarily join that program by adopting floodplain regulations and administering those regulations locally. Our program helps as a technical support for them to review those projects to make sure they meet their standards. But every single town has a different flood bylaw. And I kind of say, like, with the regional planning commissions used to have their models before our program did that. So sometimes we'll have regions that have floodplain regulations that kind of rhyme, but every single town is different. We do have models, but towns aren't obligated to adopt those, and they often choose to kind of personalize them for what is appropriate for their town. Part of our discussion was the amount of additional technical work that can create, but then also trying to bring up the level of the protection of floodplain development to a greater level, which prompted the discussion for a minimum state floodplain standard. So if a town is participating in FEMA's National Flood Insurance Program, the idea is that we're trying to bring the minimum regulation for those towns to a higher standard that's more in line with our model. So part of why we wanted to also do that at this time is because, as you see behind me, we're getting new FEMA maps. These are the anticipated dates. They keep rolling back, which is why I have new boxes over all of those counties, because every single county has been pushed back. These are done by FEMA contractors. A lot of them are being done by the USGS, but not all. But basically, as those towns get new maps, as the counties get new maps, FEMA does the mapping by county. We work with those towns and the RPCs to make sure that their flood bylaws meet FEMA's minimum standards to the very minimum. So we thought that this would be a good way to try to work in that realm to bring that minimum standard in. So then if we have a new minimum standard, they're updating their bylaws, let's align it with that time frame. The other piece I mentioned is the state legislative committee on the legislative committee on the state's role in administering the NFIP. So we have 274 communities in the state that participate in the NFIP. It's about 92%. The towns that are in red are the ones that are non-participating communities. Some reasons could be they don't have FEMA maps. It could be that they're very small. They don't have development in their floodplains. It could be that they don't have zoning and don't want to have the capacity to administer floodplain bylaws. But I think there had been previous discussion in the committee about the work that takes to do that. And I think I have it. Here you go. On the next slide, BAPTA produces their annual report, and this is from 2025. So they look at the different communities in the state, and they look at who has zoning bylaws and then flood only zoning bylaws. So those are towns that don't have any zoning but do adopt floodplain regulations. So as you can imagine, if a town doesn't have zoning but has floodplain regulations, it's often a really big lift for them because they don't have the infrastructure to issue permits. It's usually someone who, doesn't show up to a meeting who gets voted to be the floodplain administrator, or that one person who's like, I need flood insurance or my neighbor needs it. I'm going to make sure our town's in good standing. We have one town that's in like central Windsor County. I'm not going to specifically call it the town, but it's their town clerk doing it. And she gets raked over the coals sometimes for it. And she's like, this is really important for my town and I'm going to do it. And there's stories of that all over the state where they're like, we need to do this, so we're going to do it. And I keep these numbers really handy for when I talk to FEMA and people at FEMA to talk about the scale of municipal regulation and zoning and floodplain and the challenge of floodplain regulations. 89.5% of Vermont communities have less than 5,000 people. About 2/3 have less than 2,000 people. We have 11 communities that are larger than 10,000 people. And so when FEMA talks about small towns, a lot of times they're like, I know small towns. I'm from the city of 50,000 people. And you're like, that's not even like, that doesn't even register. Our largest city is less than 50,000. And so it's just putting into scale. And that was part of that legislative committee's task, is to look at what the state role may be. The discussion in Senate Natural Resources at the time had been like, the state can take over NFIP regulations. We're like, that would be massive, because I think there had been earlier discussion about the definition of development. I think Mike O'Grady had talked about the definition of development for FEMA is basically any human change to the landscape. So to regulate all of that at the state level would require a massive investment in staff. And while it is an option, I don't know if it's an option that was kind of palatable at the time. So that was the legislative committee, is to come up with some discussion of how do we look at providing capacity to towns. And what the state's role might be in that. So these are kind of the two kind of front-loaded pieces of the work that we're doing. Some of the other work that we've also begun doing is looking at the river corridor map, the infill mapping. I think Lauren Oates from the Nature Conservancy had previously testified about the investment they had made in the infill mapping pilot program, which we were a participant in, and several other partners. And that was intended to help jumpstart that, to figure out how does this work? How do we do it? And what are the barriers, the benefits of how we do some of this infill mapping? And I think that was very helpful. We right now have a master contract that's about ready to be advertised to actually hire consultants to do that work. We've also been doing a lot of back end work to try to review the base data that goes into our mapped river corridors. So as we do infill mapping, we're making sure that we have the best quality data to then use for the infill mapping. So some of that is looking at valley walls and re-verifying them using LiDAR. That's been a big thing. Our new river corridor mapping coordinator has been doing a lot of that work, going through and reviewing valley walls across the state. So the other big thing that I do want to spend, I missed the slide. So the infill, this is from that TNC funded infill mapping pilot program, just kind of showing you an example of how you might have, this is in Johnson, where you might have a river corridor in a designated downtown, in a village area, and where would infill development be able to bypass permitting or have an easier path for permitting versus where you'd still need to come in to talk to our shop. And then the last piece is the outreach and education part of it. So one of the, I think the pieces that we have really focused on, especially having learned from the rollout of the Shoreline Protection Act, I think that was about a decade ago, is the need for notification and understanding of people who would be affected by the new regulations. But one of the other pieces that I think is an added layer to that is also Act 154, which was Vermont's 2022 environmental justice law, that really compelled the agency to look at the impacts, the positive and the negatives of new legislation on environmental justice focused populations. And I spoke at the beginning that, we've anecdotally for decades worked with people in floodplains and river corridors and have seen some of those impacts, people who have the least ability to afford to do the work they may need to do, or who have the least ability to recover after a flood. But then in other research that's been done by UVM that has looked at the proportion of incomes that live in, people's incomes that live in river corridors and floodplains. And so one of the things that we've been doing is doing a lot of that outreach and education work. So we've partnered with the Nature Conservancy to do general outreach. They have, working with our new community outreach person, Tessa, have been doing 25 webinars. They have 5 more that are scheduled. But a lot of the work we had contracted with Two Rivers Ottauquechee Regional Commission to look at, to start doing some of that listening and looking at options for what are the issues for consideration for environmental justice populations. And I think that means that you may need to, do you need to go to the floor?
You have a couple minutes, yeah.
Okay.
This is.
And I could always come back. I mean, I'm the kind of person who's like, I can talk about this for hours. I'm sure you'll,
Or with the right group.
like, you'll be like, so we've been doing that work. We had 2 reports provided by Two Rivers from their subcontractors that were delivered to us at the very end of 2025 that looked at kind of southeastern Vermont and central Vermont to look at some of what are the bigger themes and issues that we've seen from people who have been affected by flooding. And so that is work that we want to continue. We've been working with Carla Ramundi's office and her work in ANR's, I'm going to get the name of the group wrong, ANR's office on civil rights and environmental justice. And they're about to embark on outreach for the environmental justice mapper, We're trying to see how we can contribute to that effort, to combine our efforts to do outreach and again, like listening for themes and issues around the benefits, but also the negative parts of what this new legislation may bring. And we're not going to be able to address all the issues that are going to come out that are going to be seen because we have a lot of experience previously, but 23, 24, 25 has really, I think, shown a big light on how large, these are much larger societal issues, but how do we make sure that we're not contributing in a detrimental way, or maybe be able to bridge that gap and work collaboratively with like Vermont Emergency Management, Agency of Human Services, ACCD, DFR, Division of Financial Regulation on some of these solutions.
So Rebecca, actually, I'm really sorry. I feel like we didn't schedule enough time for you.
It's okay.
But I'm wondering if there's one bill on the floor. I don't know if you'd be able to hang around.
Yeah, I have nothing else this afternoon. Okay. I'm like, if you got, I mean, you probably all like,
No, I
to go
don't
home.
think so. I think this committee is really interested in this topic.
Okay, so yeah, I'm
I
happy to
don't want
stay.
you to feel, I don't want you to rush through it.
Okay, I'm happy to stay because I have just a handful more slides, but I figured that this is just an entree to conversation, a bigger conversation on the Flood Safety Act and our work.
Ooh, okay, you're a little over halfway in your, I mean,
The last ones are kind of more points. Those are the main talking points that I.
so maybe I interrupted you at the wrong time, but we do need to get to
Oh,
the
that's-
where if you think you're about to wrap, I can.
I have, let's see, because I have a lot of hidden slides at the end of my PowerPoint.
More hidden slides.
Just in case, it's like if the question comes up, I have a slide for that.
Keep going. Wisdom up.
I've got like 40 slides in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so I have just a handful. If it's one bill on the floor and you think that it's something that's like a half an hour.
Wait, I don't want to say. If others have more information than I do, please let me know. But it could be, could be quick.
Yeah.
So we will invite you back.
Okay.
Do you work in Montpelier?
I don't, I'm in Essex Junction, but it's not,
You can always
I'm in Montpelier.
join us by Zoom.
It's not a big deal for me to come in. I think that Zoom is great, but I think sometimes that there's a benefit to being able to actually see people.
We appreciate that very much. I'm really sorry that we,
I know, I saw the half hour, I'm like, I don't know, I can talk forever. I need to.
feel free to say, I think I might need more time. That's totally on the table.
Well, and part of it is you also accommodated part of my schedule at accommodating me at the end of the day. I had an appointment, which I could always reschedule, but doctor's appointments sometimes can be like
Yes, we understand.
months out.